So we'll just kind of start talking about how we kind of, got started into this, but also basically we'd made a whole list of different certifications, different people to learn from, different people that we might have learned from or will learn from, whatever the case might be. Because many professions, you can go into different professions that actually target women's health, but I think that athletic trainers are positioned uniquely to do a lot of good. One kind of housekeeping thing that I discussed with Beth because I wanted her honest opinion with this. As I move forward and as we move forward, whenever I kind of talk about the stuff that we'll do education wise, we're going to be talking about athletic female health, just because I wanted to make sure that we are as inclusive and specific and I don't know, that we use correct terminology. It's important in our profession. So wanted to just target and make sure that we are talking about athletic female health whenever we're doing things. But in the grand scheme of things, working towards women's health being a specialty in our profession, we need to make sure of what we're choosing and how we're utilizing them and serving our athletes appropriately. So just to throw that one out there too and highlight that. So Beth, do you want me to kind of start going through our list and talking about different things, and then you can jump in whenever you want
Yeah,
to?
yeah, absolutely. And I'll jump in, or if you want me to add anything, just let me know. But
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
take the wheel.
Okay. So, and for those of you who don't know Beth, she was the other person, like we connected over social media. That's the beautiful thing. I was getting into women's health. I had been doing it for, about 5 years as a fitness and health educator, but she had already started doing it way before that as an athletic trainer and incorporating stuff. And it was a beautiful thing to find a like-minded person. And so we connected. We actually found out that we're from the same state and, knew some of the same people. It's a crazy small world. But so she is lending us her expertise, and she is a great person to talk to about this stuff because she has a lot of knowledge as well in this area. So let's just talk about kind of the foundational things that we would obviously have as athletic trainers. We would have our foundational athletic training education, which one thing that I want to highlight, you already have a lot of skill that you can apply towards women's health education and athletic performance and stuff like that, that maybe you're not thinking about how it translates and could be targeted towards women's health. Does that make sense to everyone? There's so much that we learn as ITs that we can translate into this field that, like, as we go through here and we start highlighting, we'll be like, wow, okay, I hadn't thought about how that directly impacts women's health, or how I knew that. I just wasn't applying it in that manner. So that's one key thing. Beth, do you have input on that?
Yeah, no, I would say I 100% agree. And I know I shared this in our last meeting, but that was kind of making that connection was my segue into women's health after having a prolapse myself after my daughter and being told, hey, you can't do anything, your active life is over. At the time, I was still competing in rowing and things, and finally making that connection of, wait a minute, I can rehab somebody from a total knee blowout back to play. There's got to be a way that you can do the same for the pelvic floor, because it is just, it's a series of muscles, it's a system. And so drawing on what I already knew as an athletic trainer was that segue then to say, okay, now what else do I need to learn?
That's perfect. And the cool thing here is that we're not only going to talk about, pregnancy and postpartum populations. This applies across the board. We have education in gen med and stuff like that, not extensive, but a foundation. And whenever we start to learn more about, maybe pathologies or different things that occur within, female health, we get to realize, oh, okay, so whenever we're talking about hysterectomies, I already have some knowledge about what's going on and what I could actually help them with after
Right.
this. Or, whatever the case might be, lymphedema, breast cancer, boob jobs. Do you know how many boob jobs I've worked on in the past year? Like, because they come into me with shoulder pain, and then we end up having a conversation about breast tissue. And so, there's so many ways that this crosses over and that we can use our basic knowledge that we already have as athletic trainers and then leverage it towards this. I don't even like calling it a specialty, but this area of health in this population. So some other things to think about. One thing that I noticed whenever I started developing my own kind of curriculum and mindset on this was how much focus there is in the fitness world towards women's health. You know what I mean? And it's mainly your pregnancy, postpartum population, or maybe your menopausal population. There's kind of those niche areas that dial in on pelvic floor or whatever the case might be. But there's really, there's not very much in regards to the manual therapy side of interventions and things of that nature. So I tried to pull in some of the things that I've inadvertently learned from on with stuff. So I'll highlight that here in a second. But let's talk about the fitness certs that we've talked about, you and I, Beth. We talked about you could get one of the good ones. Like I think, NASM, don't go for ACE, go for a higher caliber because we are higher caliber professionals. Go for your CSCS, things of that nature to take yourself to that higher level of thinking and drive, because they're really, really good certifications. I'm working through my CSCS right now and it's amazing. Like, I love it. Every time I'm learning, I'm like, oh, I knew that, but I didn't think of it that way. It's been really good. But you can also get a bunch of like pre and postnatal certifications. I know my first one was the Burrell education, postpartum. And then I went back for the prenatal, and I loved it because I had no idea. And her stuff was really, really good. You have a lot of people like Brianna Battles for that because she does a lot more of that strength focus. And I do like a lot of her stuff. She does a fantastic job. And then there were some other ones that I wrote down. Did you ever take the POP class, Beth?
From Haley?
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't. I was part of her group, but I was friends with her while she was developing that.
Okay.
Yeah, and with Bree when she was developing hers.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. And so I've been around. It was kind of funny, I've been around while these other women are developing their things, and we were all kind of brainstorming ideas off of each other, but they went in the direction they did as far as creating certifications and things, and I did not with that.
Which is not okay. You should be doing that
too. Exactly. Yeah, no, I chose to do mine more for the people who were going through the experience instead of training other professionals, and had a lot of conversations about that with the coach once. But anyway, no, I didn't do hers. I did because I did mine. Let's see, my daughter's 11. So I did my first one 11 or 12 years ago, and really the only one that was available at the time was the APTA.
Yes.
Pre and postnatal one. And so that was my initial, and it wasn't bad. There's much better ones now. But that one wasn't bad at all. And I do like the ones that you mentioned. I mean, Jenny is just amazing. I mean, you can start with Jenny's pre and postnatal stuff, and then you can dive into her menopause stuff. And
her hysterectomy one is really good.
I don't know if she still has it, but then Michelle Lyons used to do a breast cancer. I don't know if it's still in with the Meno Strength, or I don't know if it's Meno Strength or if it was her Third Age, which it was in.
She does. So what we're talking about right here, guys, is Burrell Education. Jenny Burrell, she's amazing.
I'll put something in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. She is fantastic, and like kind of like what Beth said, she's a great intro too, because it's not overwhelming, but she also pulls in other people like Michelle Lyons, who's a brilliant woman. She's fantastic. Jessica Drenham, there's so many things that you can go off of, but that's a great resource if you guys want to start there. But one thing that I did want to put, you also have Anthony Lau. He's amazing.
And I did his course right before COVID. And the thing I noticed about that, and I'll just share this, is just as an example of how much ATs are needed in this space, is that when I did it, we had probably 90% of the women who were taking the course were women's health PTs.
Yes.
We had 2 fit pros, like fitness personal trainers, who were there. And then there was me, the athletic trainer.
Woo!
The thing that blew my mind was, so all of these women's health women's health PTs had the skills as far as assessing pelvic floor function.
Mhm.
And they were fantastic with the anatomy. They were fantastic with the basics of rehab. But he had us do sports-specific return to play through the lens of pelvic health. And they were like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
What is going on? And I was just like, what do you mean you don't understand this? I mean, this is a foundation of return to play,
Yep.
for any athlete. And the fact that, I learned so much about some other pelvic health, some other, pelvic floor considerations, especially with weightlifting was his big one, and a little bit with agility and, directional changing. But his, focus in that is really more strength training.
Mhm.
But yeah, it just blew me away that was my part where I got to step up and say, hey, okay, in my 20 years of working as an athletic trainer, this is why you have to do this. And this is why there's a missing link. And you should be making the connections with the athletic trainers to have them help these women or teens or whoever you have get back to their activities that they want to do. But
Yeah.
if you have, he has online options, but if you have the opportunity to attend one of his courses in person, and he only comes to the US every
Like
once in
once
a
a
while.
year. Yeah, like
Once a
maybe.
year. He's based
Yeah.
out of New Zealand. I always forget if it's Australia or New Zealand. I'm pretty sure it's New Zealand.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely it's worthwhile to go to. You'll have to put it on your category D, but it's still worthwhile to
Yeah,
go
which
to.
we will cover that here in a second about all that stuff. Cause yeah. Whew.
Yeah.
So one thing to note here is, I'm reading off all this list. A lot of these are put on by your fitness professionals. That's why we're doing what we're doing right now. It's because we need to start thinking about this through that athletic trainer lens. Because those of us who have gone to all these different trainings, like Beth and I have, you end up seeing, like she's talking about, that gap of like, number one, they have no idea what a return to play probably should look like. And especially if we're dealing with that women's health component. And we're needed there. Like that's not their wheelhouse. There's a reason why that's our wheelhouse. So it gives us such, I don't want to say a leg up, but it really does give us a leg up. And that's why we need a little bit more,
I would buy Jesus.
concentrated. I'm sorry, what?
Because it's
I don't know. Okay, it's fine. But it's one of those
I
things
didn't
where
realize I
we
was
need
on.
a little bit more introduction and education into how we can formulate like an actual certification that we can utilize all the information. Because I don't know about you, Beth, but a lot of it, if it was especially put on by like a PT or something like that, I'm like, well, that would be great if we were working a lot on a table or just getting them to quality of life. But we have like 12 more levels that we got to go for at least my active populations where they want to go. So, going in there and not just, being a fitness professional or something like that, but we're actually taking it a step further and doing manual therapy, doing all the different things. We have so much that we could do, but I'll save that nerd out session for another day. Let's go down our list. Massage training is a great idea. Any sort of massage training that you could get under your belt. Beth, she went on to get her LMT, which is awesome. I've gone on to do myofascial massage training. There are so many other things that you could get into. I've worked closely underneath some really, really good acupuncturists and chiropractors and gone to some of their trainings and their perspectives. They have a cool take on what we can do and how we can utilize different things to impact the pelvic floor, scars and stuff like that. That's really, really key for like fundamental athletic wellness for our female athletes. So there's so many different things that you can glean from getting more manual therapy experience, whether it's massage or ART or whatever the case might be. But then having that eye and that critical thinking skill of how can I target and utilize this with my female athletes can be a real game changer. Nutrition. So I know this, I've nerded out with Beth about this before. You know, you have everything from Dr. Stacy Sims to Jessica Drummond to you could go get a women's health coach cert. Beth has. She's amazing at that. She's my go-to person whenever I have somebody that needs dialed in nutrition needs. I usually send them to her. There's so much that you can do with that information to help, again, support your female athlete. Anything on that, Beth?
Yeah, I mean, that's my love. I mean, even before I moved into the kind of female athlete, women's health stuff, you know, as much of the CEs I could get done in nutrition is where I was going. But I found it so amazing just because you can go so deep into it, especially when you start looking at hormonal health, which a lot of the other courses we've talked, especially Jenny Burrell, she does a deep dive into hormonal health, and she will bring in nutrition. And then, as you said, like Jessica Drummond, who contributes to her course, then is the one that she does. She's a women's health PT who's gone on, and now she is a doctorate of clinical nutrition. And so she really works with, and she's also an AT. She started as an AT, then moved to a PT, and then moved into nutrition. So she has a really great idea of really bringing nutrition more from a functional lens and looking at how that affects somebody, a woman, you know, whether it's healing, whether it's, you know, what they should be eating at different times of the month during their cycle, postnatal, things like that. But then you could even use that and then carry on and do some more deep dive into even just sports nutrition. And then you put that together. And suddenly I had somebody comment on one of my posts. It's like, you're unlocking these superpowers of our female athletes because we know so much from their hormonal, you know, parts, from what we can do nutritionally with them, what we can do training with them, because that comes into it. I mean, it really is, it's a huge just tunnel you can get into.
Like we could nerd out for a while. We'll try to keep this concise, but
yeah,
like her
exactly.
and I, it's hard because
yeah,
we
even
do
the
love
basics,
it. You'll get into it.
Yeah, and even the basics you get into of like, just what kind of nutrition is most beneficial in different parts of the cycle or during injury recovery or something like that can be huge for your athlete.
And you can talk about, okay, so when should we leverage different types of movements during the cycle? If we're dealing with things like, say, incontinence or prolapse or something of that nature, could we tie that in? What type of agility stuff are we having them do? What type of skill stuff are we doing to where we help to condition them appropriately? Because then you talk about fatigue and all those different factors. And then you add in that layer of nutrition and then that layer of hormones. And you can just see how like your brain can start seeing things from your basic AT skills that you already had. And then you start building those layers of understanding to apply to your female athlete. And it's really cool. I'm going to try to get us through this list here. There was doula, if you're wanting more to like hone in on moms, like your new mom, stuff like that. Midwife, doula, postpartum doula. There are so many different beautiful trainings around the world. I hands down recommend like an in-person if you can to get with somebody, but they do have online schools of thought there, looking at spinning babies, whatever the case might be. There's a lot of great education to where you could take that, hone in on that population. Maybe you're passionate about helping an athlete through their pregnancy and then return postpartum. You're going to be so amazing at that because you can tack in your manual therapy skills, your hands-on, your training, your return. There's so much, the nutrition, and then also be there for support whenever the baby comes into the world if you'd like to do that as well. It's a really beautiful thing to do.
I'll add to that too. Also, if you're not really keen on the doula thing, even going and doing like a breastfeeding counselor or educator, so not necessarily an IBCLC, but you're looking at like your La Leche League type basic training. So if you are working with women in postpartum, and that postpartum with breastfeeding can, you know, go many years, and being able to understand, how that might affect, healing and performance and things too. That training alone, especially if you're looking at working more with postpartum than you're necessarily wanting to do prenatal and pregnancy is helpful.
So I actually just completed it was manual therapy for both babies, so for infants and for breastfeeding moms, and then tongue tie special. So like becoming a tongue tie savvy therapist. And, my inner nerd was just like, yeah, it was so much fun just to start to see the connections, because you were able to learn from different professionals. And then you talk about things such as, say, tongue ties, and then you tie into the pelvic floor, and then later on issues, and then your mind can go on this nice, beautiful journey. And so I can speak to that too. That's a great investment as well, or a great thing to kind of look into. Getting through, so other movement training, like think outside the box. It doesn't have to just be your CSCS or your NASM, stuff like that. Look into things like nutritious movement. And I agree with you on that one. That one's fun. You start looking into your PRI, your other, movement assessment variability things, like go for it. Who else do I have? Alexander Tech, people like that. Just again, broaden your horizon. I know I've taken stuff like DNS and all the different other trainings that you can get into, again, ties in. And once you start to think about your female athlete and you start to kind of hone and shape, you can gather so much more experience and so much knowledge. Now, sure, you learned a lot of other things, which don't ever discard that. But it gives you a lot of leverage for your female athlete. So there's a lot more that we can mention, because that's just like probably the tip of the iceberg whenever it comes to good trainings. And I know for Beth and I, that's like just a fraction of what we've been able to dive into and learn and experience. But here's the thing that we wanted to highlight. That's a lot of investment. And I know one person had put on there, they were like, I know that this is going to be a huge investment. Like, where do I start? Like, what do I need to do? What helps me as an athletic trainer? And just like I said at the very beginning, there's many ways to get started. There's many resources available. What I'm working on, and I'm working with Beth on this, is to create something for the athletic trainer, because it's a lot of money and a lot of CAT Ds that don't really go towards any, much of your CEUs. So kind of like what we talked about with our first video was getting something to where we are covered CAT A, to where we are able to give athletic trainers a leg up, so that at least they have a place to start and they're not just like running around like we were and gathering all these different certifications and putting it in sort of a great toolbox. Don't get me wrong, my toolbox is busting at the seams, but it's just a way to kind of condense all of that. You take billions of hours and then condense it into, what we're able to condense it into. So something like that, that's kind of what we're working on right now. I've already had the outline made. I was just talking with Beth about it because I'm getting all super excited, making all the PowerPoints and all the things. But we're looking at running a beta test, maybe September, maybe January. And we'll only do 10. I only want 10 people in there because we want to make it good. We want to really present to, someday even the BOC being like, hey, look at what, we could potentially do, and gather that data and like showcase how important this could be for female athletes. And the outline that I've created and the stuff that I've created right now is 12 weeks, and it would be recorded. They would, be there for you. Beth and I had talked a lot about, making some ebook resources and stuff like that. That's on the table as well, just to, again, put a little bit more information in our hands and a little bit more resources, so that we can help our athletes even more and kind of take that next step as a profession too. Because I'm kind of excited if we could get more people thinking in this realm, what it could do for us. Because like you said, you're the only athletic trainer in some of these certifications. And I've been there too, where I'm like, yeah, I'm an athletic trainer. They're like, why are you here? I'm like, well, here's what I do.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, let me tell you all about it, because I will. we need to have that more. We need to have that education out there for sure. Any questions, anybody, Beth or Aaron? I mean, guys, if you have any questions right now.
I don't have a question, but are you gonna post that list of everybody that you mentioned
Yeah.
on Facebook or okay.
And I've put some of the links in the chat. for
Yeah,
some
I've
of-
seen those.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's so many different ones, and there's no right or wrong way to get started. Like I said, Burrell was really good place for me to start. And then, just dove in. So
Well, yeah.
go for it.
Yeah, I was just with Burrell, and I've worked with Jenny because I've contributed to one of her courses. She's passionate, about this, and she's from England, so they don't have to a lot of stuff over in England for this kind of stuff more, I think, and she understands the role of the athletic trainer, even though they don't necessarily they have a sports therapist, but it's a little different.
Mhm.
It's a good overview to kind of start filling in some blanks, but definitely not all of it. So, and
Yeah.
what Cassandra is saying is, yeah, I mean, we can post this list and it's going to be overwhelming when
Yeah,
you see the
And that's
list.
the thing. It's going to be a huge amount of things, and you're going to be like, okay, then where do I start? Like, what looks good? And then how does it translate to your training room, to your setting, to if you're industrial, military, whatever the case might be? That's the missing thing that we're finding, and it's a lot.
And I'll say too, and I don't know, Cassandra, I mean, this list, these are some of the bigger ones that we've mentioned that kind of cover some of the gross things, but if I were to go back over the past 10 years and look at my notes and CEs and stuff, the number of courses I've taken from MedBridge or that I took from, specific women's health PT courses that I just took what I could, that I took from random online trainings for massage therapy, it's like all of those, NATA even found a couple in there that, you could pull. I mean, some of that, was pulling. It's like, what can I find that I could get some CEs from that gives me a little bit more knowledge than what I had before?
Yep.
So what we've had on this list is just, yeah, they're kind of like the gross, the gross, list of trainings
Yeah.
you could look at, but then there's all the micros. So we got the macro lists and the micro, things that you would.
And I don't think, like, looking back at it, especially for manual therapy and things of that nature, and it was more of those micro where I started taking in those things, because you can find all the fitness thing, all the exercise things, all that side of things until you're blue in the face, to be honest.
Yeah.
But if you're whenever you're looking to integrate all the other skills that we want to utilize as athletic trainers, to actually utilize our skills and not just hang out and do exercises and stuff like that, utilize all your skill set, that's hard to find, just to be frank.
Yeah,
it'd be hard to find. So,
but yeah, I mean, I think we'll definitely post them, and
yeah, for sure.
The course that Cassandra and I are putting together is going to be a really nice foundation of things that then, like, I teach massage therapy right now in a course, and all the massage therapy students are like we were when we were in school, and they want to know, oh, well, now where can I learn about this? Where can I do this? How can I do cranial sacral? How can I do, all of that? And it's like, well, right now what we want is a foundation where you get an experience and you get introduced to all the different components that you could dive into. And that will allow you then to decide, okay, what do I really want to specialize and learn more of? And that way you can use, your finances and your time in those specific areas, instead of doing what Cassandra and I have done of just, having this ridiculous amount of training in different things. So,
because the world of women's health and female health is very big. Like, you could Yeah, for days, like years, which
It
is a
is.
beautiful thing because you want to continue to learn because don't stop learning. But you can kind of see, okay, here's the overview of even a female athletic health.
Yeah.
There's the overview. Okay, I really, really like this, not so much this, definitely diving more into this. And then that even narrows you from like all the things to a plate full of things to a section of your plate, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just say too, and then I'll stop because we need to wrap this up, I know, but you know, knowing that the great thing is kind of women's health is trending. You know, the
Mhm.
focus on the female athlete is trending. And because of that, there are a lot of options out there. And so
Yes.
being able to really understand which ones are the most beneficial for you and where you want to take your career is gold.
Yes.
So
Yeah. And that way you're not, you know, things are expensive. Let's just be honest. Things are expensive and it does start adding up, especially whenever we have, you know, at the end of the day, we have CEUs that we do have to pile on, right? So just making sure that you can dial in and stuff like that, that's going to be, I think, more of a necessity than it used to be. And I don't mean to sound dramatic with that, but I think as we progress further through the years now, it's going to get more necessary for us to like, okay, hone in instead of just being like, I'm just going to search all the things and figure it out as I go because I have no idea what I'm doing. Instead of being like, oh, well, this is where I could actually go. Great. Now I have a little bit more direction. So anyways, that's how you could get started. And I know we gave you a lot because there was a lot there. Is
and
that
there's some, I'm going to read it. Something came through the chat. So
perfect?
Catherine says, I don't work with pregnant or postnatal populations. The population of female athletes I work, college and high school ages,
Oh.
I believe have subtle pelvic floor related issues. Would these courses apply? Do they focus more on the prenatal and postnatal?
Oh, this
I can
question.
to that. I know you
I know,
can't.
I know.
That's
It lights me up every single time.
my focus is high school.
Yep.
And I still work with high school. And the short answer to that is yes. And I'll share a specific one from Jessica Drummond for you. That would definitely be a great place to start.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right. We are starting to see incontinence and diastasis and stuff like that, even as kids and young as 10.
Yes.
And so, you know, understanding and starting to teach these kids about pelvic floor, and then just about themselves in general, and how they're changing and how they can do different things for their performance as a female athlete is huge. So I'll share a couple really quick before we head out. But the other part is like in one of the, Jenny's got a course on working with teens, and I contributed a huge, huge lesson.
It was massive.
It's mad. I was laughing because when I saw what the other people did, I was like, oh.
We might have overshared.
I overdid it a little bit. But anyway, there I kind of touch on that in that
Well,
course.
I would like to add something to that because you know, you put, I work with college and high school ages with that subtle pelvic floor issues. Would these courses still apply? Yes, you would be able to glean information from it in different ways, like from the different pieces. However, I will speak to the fact that there's very few that will talk about how, yeah, we're going to start seeing this a lot more in gymnasts. We're going to start to see this a lot in these active populations, and then ways to address that and things to look out for, things to start educating on. Because again, most of those courses, if you're thinking about where they're coming from your fit pros or from your pelvic floor PTs or women's health PTs, where they're not thinking in the scope of an athletic trainer. And that's the things that is missing, because Beth and I, we've had to piece all these different things together to formulate it to fit something that might not be a postpartum or prenatal. Does that make sense? Hopefully I'm saying that, Beth, correctly.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that I will say was missing and that we had to take extra money and time to formulate.
Yes.
Because you're seeing, if you're working with your high school or your college athletes, where you're seeing, you know, a lot more cheerleaders are having these issues, a lot of gymnasts are having these issues, these specific, these sports and these active populations. I worked with a lot of jiu-jitsu athletes recently, another conversation right there. You're gonna see that translation is a little bit different, and how we have to think about it is a little bit different. So piecing all these things together and then arriving later on is great. But that's one thing that we do want to help bridge, is because the way that we have to deal with stuff and the tools that we use and the methodologies that we can use is a little bit different than what you will find in some of those courses. Does that make sense? Did I say that appropriately, Beth?
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. Yeah, it's, great thing about athletic trainers is we're pretty resourceful. And we're used to, figuring out the pieces fit together
Yes.
for us. And that's a lot of what this is.
Yes, 150%. And that's why, especially, a lot of the new grads, they will ask, okay, so, what's the course that's at it? I'm like, really, there wasn't a course. Like there wasn't one. There isn't one. We're gonna fix that, but there wasn't one. And so hopefully, what Beth is going to give you, the list that we're going to provide, it gives you some examples of where we've had to pull from, where, and that's just, again, that's the big list, the big perspective courses. There's so many other things that you'll be able to use as an athletic trainer to help your high school and college athletes with those subtle pelvic floor issues. And then you kind of highlight things to them. You're like, hey, do you remember that groin strain that we had last year? Hey, do you remember how many headaches you've been having and like jaw pain whenever you wake up? Hey, do you remember that case of plantar fasciitis that came up at the beginning of a cross-country season last year? And you'll be able to explain to them, that's why maybe, and here's the cool part, you'll be able to start to translate, maybe that's causing these other factors. And they don't even have to say, yes, I am experiencing incontinence, but you kind of see them go, oh, so that's not just normal. Oh, it's not just a part of my sport. So you're going to have that information and you can translate it more effectively. And again, I'm nerding out right now, but you can kind of see how our brains kind of work and how an athletic trainer can just thrive in this setting. So hopefully that was the long answer to your short question. And like I said, I'm recording this, so I will share this on YouTube and then post it to the group for those who weren't able to make it. Hopefully that helped answer your question, Catherine. Any other questions? Okay, you guys, have a beautiful Sunday. I will let you go. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will chat with you soon. Bye, guys.
Right.
Thank you. Bye.